if that works, thanks for recording it, and welcome to this Boards 2035 little experiment, really, and a chance to play with what we are working with at the moment. Our intention with Boards 2035 is to look at how we work with our clients, existing clients and new clients, and across lots of different types of organizations, and see how we can invite them into the sorts of conversations that we feel are really meaningful and will support them to be more addressing the conditions that we actually find ourselves in now. And we intend to do that by simulating a board meeting as if it's 2035. And we would invite the existing senior leadership team, some of the board members from an organization, and also maybe some of the successors to that senior team, so that we have a mix of people that are managing the organization as is, and the people that are going to be organizing it in the next 5 to 10 years as some of these challenging transition times really start to bite even more than they are right now. So today we're going to go through a very small practice of that, and we're going to invite you to take on some roles as board members in an organization. Reiner's going to assign some names and roles to us just for speed of time. We'll provide a one-pager scenario about the company so that you can read about that. And then we'll brief you further into how we get into this board meeting. If we were working with a client, we would have done a few months prep. We'd be working with their company and organization, so we wouldn't have to set up this role play piece. So we're just going to play with that today and see what that's like. Once Reiner has addressed the roles, we we'll take you into a little scenario of the future, and we'll talk more about that in a moment. So Reiner, do you want to jump in and offer some roles?
Yeah, and I will speak a bit to the scenario as well. So Yenesi, I will invite you to become the chairperson of the board. And you will be a representative, exactly. And it's a German company owned by a family now in the third and fourth generations. And you are a fourth generation family member, also the chairperson of the family foundation. That is holding quite an important part of the shares of the company. And the actual CEO is also a family member of the earlier generation, like a remote cousin of yours from another branch of the family. So there are two family people among the 4 that we wanted to be actually sitting here. But amazing for our times, there's so many women on the board. So you will be the chairperson and you will be called Alexandra from now. So if you want to change your name to Alexandra, and of course, as it's a family business, everybody will be at first name basis here. So don't need to get it more formal, although it's a German company. And you will read on the briefing a bit on the company history. There was a very charismatic entrepreneur after the Second World War who made it really big and famous. And then they had a bit of family crisis and infighting. This is now over. And they have sorted that out. And now it's just about what is the business. So we know the story only until 2023, so that you will find there. So then we have a role for Ivy if you want, but you can take it gently. And I don't know whether you can read this on the phone, but your name will shift to Andrea, which is a German first name for women. And you are a 38 years old agroecologist, and you have written a book that made you famous, Healthy Food for a Healthy Planet, a post-climate change manifesto. We don't know much more about you, but you can basically bring in your knowledge from your book into the board deliberations. And Jackie, if you're available to be a board member too, you will be a female. Don't confess about your real age, but she's definitely older than you. Her name is Julia Brown. And you have been working, and you are also from a family business, but from a German pharma and medical supplies company. You had excellent education, and at 26 you already entered the company and then served mainly in Singapore and China. So you know something about Asia, which in Germany nowadays is still pretty rare, but in 35 people know that Asia is a real center of the world. And you have actually, you are the CEO of your own company, and you have been invited into the board just a year ago. You're married, 3 kids. The kids are already pretty old. So
They're
this is
chasing me
you.
up on my age. Wonderful, thank you.
No, it's not your age. It's the age of
I
your
said
role.
that the children are chasing me up on my age, but thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So, and I will be the CEO of the company because there's a male as well, and I'm the cousin of Alexandra, younger than I'm really are. Actually, I have been in the company since ever in various management roles. As I was a family person, I always was there in leadership roles. I'm also married with 2 already aging children, and this is the only thing we know about each other. So the rest we play from there. And then I invite you to read the company history as we continue, and yeah, take maybe a minute or 2 or 3 to just read from the document about the company history. If there's a few questions, we can clarify things so that we have a similar background on where we are. And then we will come with a second reading piece from Jackie about the year 2035. Because so far what we know is only until the end of 23.
This is very specific. I like it.
Yeah, it's a 150-year-old business. Just noticing, I was making up quite a story. I was inspired by a real family-driven empire of food that actually exists in Germany. So,
Yeah, I was reading
but
the
I
whole
made it
thing.
another one.
I was reading everything. It seems like it's a very strong business.
It's well established and quite well.
Yeah.
Very established, yes.
Yeah, wonderful. Okay, so we have a sense of the organization, and we can refer back to that as we need. What we wanted to just share now is a document with a scenario of the future for 2035. But we also did want to say that there is a sense of taking care of ourselves in reading a scenario like this, because on the path that we're on, if we don't start to create significant change, we are looking at fairly significant and global challenges around our food systems. So I just wanted to check in how you guys are feeling in terms of your own well-being, sense of any eco-anxiety, and to just flag that this has some of that potential to take us into that territory. And I wanted us to be aware and choiceful in, do we want to read this now? Do you want to read this at midnight when you're in bed, Ivy, etc. Yeah, so that's the choice before we jump into it blindly. Can I get a little sense from you, Yanesi? How do you feel it's about reading this? Because some of it is quite bleak.
This scenario seems chaotic. Seems very in despair, and with this climate change. Yeah, because I'm seeing here el Niño year for me.
Yes.
The Niño is this.
Yes, and I think before
storms
we
and
go,
everything that is happening.
yes, before we go into it, we just wanted to double check. Are you okay to read that now? Are you in a place where you can read that and work with that and be well? That was our question, or well enough.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, great. We just wanted to be really clear on that. And Ivy, I don't know if you're still able to hear us, but we just wanted to again check if you can hear us, how you are, and if that works for you to read this at this time of your evening.
Yeah, sure. I'm still reading the whole.
Great. So let's read and take a few minutes if you're happy to go there. Thank you for that.
Now, as you read it, there's one way how to process it. Please read it from your role. So it's Alexandra reading it, it's Andrea reading it, okay? And you read it in your role as this is from this established business. And the question that is important here is, from this scenario, what do you see now for the board of this very established food holding with all its subsidiaries all over the planet and their main headquarters in Germany? For this food company, what will be the most important points on the agenda when we have our meeting in January 2035? Because the first thing we will do, and you as a chairperson, you will guide us then, is to establish the agenda. So what should be on the agenda of the board meeting now that we are not yet in the board meeting, but this is the sort of situation we are facing on the planet.
So we'll take a few minutes to read it. Yeah.
No pressure, right? Because I'm the chair of the board. No pressure.
Yeah.
Sure. We take it relaxed family style here. But this is just the form. The substance is as dire as it is.
Okay, how are we doing?
What I rename here in Zoom
Thanks, Alexandra.
to play the game.
Thank
Great.
you. Yeah, see, the idea that we have for facilitating this, but we don't have the facilitator now, so it will be you, the chairperson, Alexandra. But the idea is everybody can speak once to introduce what for them are the most important things to discuss on the agenda, and you run kind of the order in which people speak and so on. But we will have in the board meeting only time for 2 points. So even if 4 are suggested, in the end, we will have to make a priority choice. So if you have an idea in mind how to come to this priority as a sort of consent in the group, you can take the process that feels best for you. Otherwise, I could suggest you one. So you can ask me for facilitation support anytime. But otherwise, we are now in your experienced hands as the chairperson of the board in the January 2035 meeting, and I hand over to you to open our meeting.
Okay. So based on this scenario, I'm understanding that I should propose some immediate actions, right? But I'm not quite sure if these actions. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
We're in 2035. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So we're
I'm
now
trying
in
to.
2035, and your role is to listen to yourself, Rainer, me, let me get these right people, Robert, Julia, and Alexandra, and to hear what are the main points that we're concerned about being, and now that it's 2035, and for you to capture what those points are, and then we'll select the 2 that we want to focus on.
Okay. Well, well, I need a little bit of assistance. This is my first time in a board, not in the story, but me as Unesi. I mean, taking decisions. That's a different thing. I mean, I have a couple of ideas about what immediate actions we could take, but I mean, I think we can.
We can start by just hearing from each of us, like reading the things. That would be a good place to begin.
Please go ahead.
Yeah. And Ivy, if you want to speak with the background of the author of the famous book of a food system after the climate change crisis times, that would be very appreciated.
Okay. So, Rainer, do you want to speak first then?
Sure. Robert will start. He's the CEO. He always takes the floor first, if not interrupted. So I am very happy that we are meeting in this board because we are in such a crisis times and things are not getting any better. So for me, the most important thing to put on the agenda is to take a few really important decisions to basically change into like a crisis management mode for the whole year of 2035. And I have a few ideas that are associated to that, and I have already prepared a few things. But it's important this is really supported by the whole board. And crisis means first that we declare the crisis for everyone in the company. The questions are how that I would like to discuss then as parts of this crisis strategy is how we contract with governments worldwide. So that we are not just driven by the government decisions, but have like eye-level conversations with them. I see that we have a special asset that we know how to conserve food well and produce it in ways that it can be stored, so that we offer this capacity as a main contribution to everyone these days, and how we can actually ensure we actually get our raw materials, our supplies, that we get food to process it, and so these are the 3 main points I want to discuss. And we have a 4th one. This is how we make sure we are financially stable and we get extra cash to be able to support all those. Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, I had some similar points as well. I'm very curious what analysis we can do to understand the state of the soil and the growing capacity of our producers. How are they affected by the recent El Niños? What is the productivity? We've been on a whole strategy for the last 5 years to create much more localized food production around our processing facilities. So I want to have that data on tap to know where's the food coming from, where is it, if there's any crisis and destruction, where is that happening, and what actually can we do to protect the food that we're growing. I think what Robert just said with the government, what are the subsidies for the food, especially the powdered food, where this can provide a high degree of nutrition. It can be distributed easily, but is the government subsidizing it enough so that low-income people and people who are really struggling right now can get access to it and can afford it? So I want to negotiate on those things. Yeah, I think those are my main points for now.
Right. Yeah, I was thinking more or less on the same topics. Also, I was considering the some of diversification. Probably we can expand some partnerships with the stable regions in Asia to mitigate a little bit of these climate-related disruptions. And yeah, what you are mentioning about the food stage, how we can measure the quality of the food we're finding, and if there are any action plan that we can build around that. I was considering probably we can consider that the vertical farming, so we can secure local and sustainable food production despite the climate change challenges that we are facing.
Yeah, I agree. More controlled environment agriculture is critical to our strategy for survival. And the other thing I didn't mention was just how are our people doing? You know, where are they being hit? Do they have enough food? Are they able to work for us? And how do we support them so that their health and well-being is sustained? Because in certain core places, it's incredibly challenging right now.
Yeah, I can report from the ongoing business that we have actually shifted the pay for some of our staff in some highly hit regions already in 20 countries. Part of their pay is actually in food, because food has become so scarce. People prefer to get food rather than money. And we still have enough food for our own staff. The question, the really thing that really bothers me is there is just not enough food for all humans. So how do we deal with that? And that's, we can only process food. And you need to know we only have still limited beginnings in agriculture investments. We are not controlling the whole chain. Most of our suppliers are themselves struggling to get food and give us the pre-processed ingredients we have for our main production. So it's only 5 years ago we started investing into farming, and so we don't have so much to really reach out directly. Nancy, how do we prioritize? What do we really discuss most?
Oh my gosh.
Sorry, I also want to
Ivy, yes.
add, I also want to add something to the
Please,
agenda.
please, yeah.
I'm thinking like if we can explore developing some recipes that's based on our current supply, and how to make them sustainable at the same time. This will be healthy recipes Yeah, so if we can, I don't know, if we can prioritize doing research and yeah, developing some healthy recipes that are based on the sustainable products that we currently have, and without really sourcing it from far, or from, yeah, that's yeah that, yeah, just having the ingredients that we have at the moment. It's like from our own farm to the table of our workers. So if we can explore the idea of developing recipes with the ingredients that we currently have, and how to make it sustainable.
And seems like I have to pick and prioritize all those topics, right?
Yeah, or you can have us take a decision together. You don't need to necessarily do it for us. We can also do it. So
okay. Well, I think one key point is what Julia mentioned about what's the status that we currently have with our coworkers and so on, so we can make sure that these people is with us, and it is I mean, they are our workforce, so I need to know what's the status there, and if it is and make sure that it is okay in order to move forward with the other topics. Another thing I consider we can of course discuss is what I was mentioning, because based on the resources we currently have, we can consider the idea about make let's like review this past expertise on our concentrated food, or the deep frozen food, so we can see if we can play with what we have before trying to find other options. And what else? You mentioned something, Rainer, but I can't remember. Robert, sorry, but I can't remember anymore.
No, the most important is that we declare a company-wide crisis state, so that our normal decision-making and so on can be much faster and less bureaucratic. And we create like a crisis committee in which we take swift decisions, because we need to act now at an unprecedented scale. So that for me would be an important decision to be taken by this board. On the other content issues, I'm quite open in which order we discuss them, but that we basically create the governance to be able to meet the crisis, that is important for me.
Yeah.
And the other one that's really important is in our supply chain, because we have no idea what we'll get when, and it's so much less reliable. And
it's a mess. It's a complete mess.
Well, it's pretty broken in places, and so stuff will arrive unexpectedly, and no stuff will come free. Yeah. So how do we manage this very non-reliable supply chain?
Okay.
Yeah, that's the main focus of the crisis committee. But then the other points I mentioned will be part of their mandate as well, like how to negotiate with governments. And yeah, I like everything else that you brought up. This is part of the package. We cannot just have one solution. We need to be holistic here.
Okay. Oh, this is hard, you know. For me, it's hard. Okay.
Is there anything else to go on the agenda, sorry, from what we discussed?
I think we covered the more general topics and important ones.
what are the first two that we can actually discuss here? Well, I would imagine the actual meeting would deal with all points, but we have only two in our meeting that we can really discuss.
Well, shall we create a process where we go around and each say our top two, and then we'll see if there's any consensus there?
I like that idea.
Do you want to start then, Alexandra?
Sure. Let's see. In this specifically order, right? Come again, what is the question again? Sorry.
No worries. Which of the, well, so far we've got 5 agenda points in the chat window, and in a normal board meeting we'd probably cover them all, but for our meeting today, we're going to focus on 2.
Okay.
So which 2 do you think would be the most important ones for us to speak about just now?
Let's pick the home to manage a non-reliable supply chain. And how to negotiate with government. And
that's the two top.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I am uncontested. I'm distracted a little bit today, sorry. Yeah,
No
just
worries.
those two then.
+1 for the supply chain, but I cannot not have a decision on how to run the crisis within the company and to create the crisis committee.
Okay.
I would also say +1 to the supply chain, because it's related to my interest topic, which is what do you call this? Yeah, recipes based on sustainable and available food. So I think if we discuss the supply chain, it can touch on the topic of sourcing ingredients for from sustainable farming practices. So that's I think that's the highest priority for me. I can think of the second one.
I'm similar. The non-reliable supply chain would be a priority. I kind of imagine that we would already have a company-wide crisis process in place. So I would also like to include like the status of the workforce, because if we don't have any people to work, we don't have any business or organization or food supply for anybody.
Yep, all good points. Alexander, what do we do?
Oh, well, if that's the scenario, which seems a little bit sad, I think it is time to build some partnerships with some producers in more stable areas and trying to invest in local sourcing.
So just to stay in the process, you're saying we should now discuss the supply chain issues?
Yeah. I mean,
yeah,
you are mentioning that there is basically not a supply chain right now, because we are in okay, well, I think we need to find ways to
I can report a bit.
Ignite, to move this supply chain. So that's the idea I have, is having this partnership. So with these local producers, probably they're in positioned in this stable area, so they can actually build help us build this local production, and also try to implement some what's the name of that, like to track the ingredients through this supply chain that we are trying to recover.
Yeah, I can first give a status update to you what's happening so far. I mean, it's not that we have not tried to get hold of supply as we could. The general problem is that there is simply not much reserves left, and in many countries the rationing has started. So we only get 20% of what we usually get as input into our production. So we have already thinned our portfolio of products, and we have focused on the most nutritious and the most lasting processed foods that are now delivered into most of our markets. And still we have issues of securing any supply in a longer term, because although it has been a bit less severe than last year, we still have basically no food basic supplies left in store, and governments don't want to release them anymore. So we need to negotiate with governments as well, not just with partners. We have invested into our own production only 5 years ago, so that is now paying off, because we have our own resources that go into our production. But as this has been only recent, we only have it in 10 countries so far, and it is covering only 5% of our normal production. And we can try to buy a few more larger agricultural producers, but they have become pretty expensive now. We don't have so much funds left to buy them. The prices of their shares have rocketed up, and not many want to sell anymore. So we're a bit late now.
Okay. Beyond considering, of course, the idea about to negotiate with government, which is something we are going to discuss in this board, have we considered some innovative methods of, like I said, like the vertical farming or aquaponics, so we can reduce this dependence and on traditional agricultural supply chains?
That has been part of the ideas, and I think that was one of the reasons we had invited Angela into our board. I think her name was Andrea, but anyway, because she was kind of leading quite some research and development activities in the field. So maybe you have some updates there from the Philippines.
Sorry, what was the question?
Do you want to tell us a bit how the less conventional agricultural practices are functioning right now in the conditions of El Niño? You were our first-hand researcher in residence while being on the board, so that we get first-hand information about this.
No big ask there, Rainer. Please solve the food challenges of the future, Angela.
The research, I don't have the data on hand, but I don't know what to. So you mean the research on the farming practices? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, how are the less conventional farming practices doing? Because that is what we have been experimenting in some of the farming outlets that we have been investing into in the last years.
Let me get back to you on that.
Okay, that's all right.
I don't have an answer to that question. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Maybe I can speak to some, because I was actually speaking to a farmer this morning who's in regenerative agriculture, and I'm not sure what I say will be 10 years ahead, 2035, but what they're noticing is that the farms that are really working with the soil and cover cropping, and so it's always active with lots of root systems, varying the root depth so that the soil and the nutrients aren't all being pulled from the same levels. Like the soil health is really strong, and it's so much more able to sequester water and carbon, and it's been doing a fantastic job where we have that in place. So there's no doubt that agroecological approach, it makes a massive difference for the resilience of these farmlands. And the issue is just that as we're trying to get other land to recover and to heal so it can sequester, the continued repetition and quicker happening of El Nino is making it very challenging. So at the moment, these farms are trying to figure out how to protect the crop from severe weather, and that's proving pretty tricky. And although the controlled environment agriculture is helpful, when the power goes down, we end up in, like, with the temperatures dropping, and it's creating problems. So there is no doubt that that works, but with the severity of the weather system, it's proving fragile at times.
Yeah, thanks for the update. Alexandra.
Thanks for the update. Yes. Okay, sounds like we can learn from that and take advantage somehow about that information.
Well, I think my
Okay.
sense is that with the 10 places that we have local farms, we really need to just roll this information out as much as possible and double down on that, because even when it does break or it doesn't work, the parts that are working, we have to keep investing, keep recovering, keep working at it. So yeah, so it's quite a challenge because we don't know where the weather's going to hit or how much damage it's going to do. But that, I mean, any money or investment or profits we have has to really focus on the health of the soil and the recovery of the land. And then it can manage the water much better.
Yeah, I think we can play on building relationships there also.
Yeah.
Because, okay, we have these 10 farms that you're mentioning, but then of course we have to consider to collaborate with more community organizations or more local actors that could have this strong understanding of the situation, and of course the communication is something that play a lot on this game, because we can they can vouch for our credibility and commitment on finding solutions that could lead us to not only profit but also help the overall ecosystem.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So speaking about that, what kind of collaborations are we building? Not only with these local farms, but also, I don't know, I'm talking about NGOs or the government itself. What's the status of that?
Yeah. No, I just wanted to come to this, as the government is basically taking over the food supply or controlling it heavily. One of the points we can lobby them for is to basically control less the production that comes from agroecological farming, and have them more tax and control the conventional farming, so that these sectors can grow, because ultimately this is the source of food we can rely on in the future. This sort of old agriculture, the traditional agriculture, mass scale monocultures, they're basically not operating anymore. So that is what we can help governments to really shift their agricultural policies and subsidies and so on to much heavier than ever support the agroecology and allow us to buy from them without too much hassle, so that this goes into production right away, and keep their control more focused on traditional farming that needs much different protection if it wants to continue.
Out of all the things that we could lobby the government for, is that like, should we just check that that is the most important aspect? Because
that
if we don't have,
where, sorry.
if we don't have a marketplace that can afford our food or that are well enough to buy the food, you know, we can grow all the food, but we can't actually sell it. And you know, and we're real danger here of not actually having a company. And we need a subsidy. We're almost at the point of becoming like a social enterprise. Like we need more funding from bodies, public institutions to survive, because our customer base is in such bad state and our distribution channels aren't sustainable.
Well, our whole business model is not really working anymore. The supermarkets business model is not working anymore. So it's our supply chain is not only how we get our supplies, where we distribute is not really working anymore. It's because the transport duration to have worldwide sourcing for a supermarket in the UK it's just not working anymore. And this is true for all supermarkets worldwide. So the distribution becomes more local, but we can help into that distribution with our processed foods because they are storable, they last longer. And that is very important these days. So that's the point we make in our communications. And we want to be subsidized, or our customers get subsidies. This is important. But the other thing is also that our supplies that come from regenerative or agroecological farms actually is not taxed anymore, so that we get the prices as affordable as possible, and we can produce things at the budget that our customers still have. And if they don't have it in some countries, the government will need to subsidize the food prices or give money to the consumers directly. That's governments already considering, but we have an important say here that they do it well. That's part of the crisis committee's work. Actually, we become much more political. I would not say social enterprise, but it's more like a war situation. We need to really deal with government as a most important player nowadays. I mean, for corporate-wide decision making.
Would you perceive that is there a way of get some benefits? I mean, get some mutual benefit with the government in this phase? And this scenario we are facing right now? Is there a way we can probably adapt or make a proposal based on this information, so we can find some solutions that could address both sides?
Yeah. Do you have any experience from your pharma business, Julia? I mean, medical supplies are in a similar dire state. So,
what was the question? Sorry, I was looking something up.
If we
what can we offer governments?
If we can have of course. But something that we can offer that could be a win-win scenario for both.
For governments and the food producers and us. Well, we need to secure the supply of food growth, food production, and have it be as stable as possible in a very volatile market, and volatile world. The government needs that as well in order to protect its people and feed the population. So
yeah, but Robert is mentioning that they are prioritizing to have a much market by them for them as never before. So I'm wondering if we can find something, a solution for that, like they can provide us a space to build more relationships. For example, as I mentioned, with Asia, which has rice production.
Thank you. Oh, she's gone.
Oh yeah, Ivy's gone. Was very interesting.
She took her homework with her.
Yeah, she said, no, this company is too complicated.
Yes, for sure. The scenario is too complicated.
The scenario is too complicated. Yeah, well, that was I was wondering, like, if we can find a way of nurture or network, and of course that means chain supply, but by finding this win-win scenario.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm completely following what the win-win is. Sorry.
I think we should generate some ideas here. Or can we take a decision that this is the sort of criterion for us? We're not going to bribe governments. We're not trying the dirty tricks. We are proposing genuine win-win solutions, and I would like this as not lowering the ethical standards in our company. I can say this. Otherwise, I would resign from my position.
Yeah, but I think also, I mean, there is a win-win. We have to work together, and we have to work together across many different partners to make this work. But as a board, we have to be really flexible on what our business model is going to be, because it does not work. The whole ground for our business model profitability doesn't hold anymore. It's been so shaky, and we've worked so hard, and we're putting ourselves under a lot of stress, and we have to let go. And when I was talking about social enterprise or an NGO, I mean, that is the territory that we're getting into, where we might be able to break even and pay ourselves, etc. And how, I mean, this comes back to your point, Robert, about the company-wide crisis state. I think the whole, if we don't tackle the stranglehold the shareholders have over us making these decisions, we won't survive. You know, if they're still focusing on a profitable future as the most important deliverable, and driving profits, I mean, we're in new conditions here. So if we don't get that through as an agreement of the significant shift in approach, then we won't be able to operate. And if we can do that, then partnering and becoming more of an NGO that can cover costs and survive through this period gives us the potential of being relevant and valuable in the longer term. But that's, yeah, curious how that lands with this board.
I have the inner voice of both the CFO and our banker on the board who are not here, but I think this is not how they would communicate it to their world. But fortunately, we are a majority family-owned business still. That gives us some relaxation, as we know our shareholders very well, and some of us are sitting here. So I'm very happy that you're here, Alexandra, and represent the Family Foundation. And we have a long-term business outlook anyway. It just feels like we are a bit hit by a situation that was developing much faster than we foresaw it even 10 years ago. And we are catching up with events now. And this is what makes it very hard. So we have just a little bit of sustainable farming in our portfolio. If we had bought way more of it earlier, we would look at it much differently, and we would be profitable now. Because the profit shifts to the farmer nowadays. It does not shift to the producer and marketer anymore. And our brand is still very important. It gives us such a value. People believe what we are offering. That's why I don't want to make any ethical compromises here.
But can I just say something, that having bought regenerative or sustainable farms does not insure us against the catastrophic weather system that's going through. And so and that is getting worse and worse every year. And the El Nino is getting closer and closer. So that's not a sure, yes, that's a very good strategy that we did across the last 5 to 10 years. But we are entering a prolonged period of very challenging times. And if we can think radically about who we are and what we are and how we survive, I think that's what I'm pointing to. So it does, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I was thinking the same. I think we need to focus on build some structure on in terms of I mean, we have certain knowledge considering the fact that we have key people that is expertise on keeping this corn, this food alive, considering the scenario. And probably what we need to explore is more than these partnerships, and of course the communication that should exist to promote this ethical sourcing that we're experimenting with these farms, for example, is a way is to provide more information about how we are making it possible, so we can include more people in our local people, and the government too, into this what's the word, like politics? No, that's not the word. Finding a word. Like yeah, this policy we are trying to achieve, right? So we can incentivize this sustainable agriculture, local food production, so we can invest a little bit more in this research and on trying to yeah, to announce, to communicate that we are despite all these climate change challenges, we are trying to provide these long-term food security solutions. I think we can manage the lobby part on by using that concept, by using that general idea.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, our company history goes back 170 years now, and what we have learned in many crises is still somewhere in our DNA. We have been in business during world wars, and Germany was completely destroyed. We kind of came out of the ashes with that. So this capacity from our grandfather's generation is still there. And we have all the recipes actually in our archives that are needed now to make food out of basically nothing. I mean, in the year 1944 and 45 and 46, we still could produce food for Germans who had basically nothing. I mean, so this is stuff to really revitalize. And this is where our brand also has it already. So we are not telling people something they would not expect from us. I'm more concerned to actually get governments on board who are more dictatorial and don't get it that the actual food supply will come when they have like a self-managed system in place. We see this only in very few countries where this works, and there we have actually also our farms that are really producing well. And so part of our lobbying will be to actually spread the knowledge from the few places that are more resilient than others into other parts of the world. And in that sense, we are indeed a social enterprise, because that knowledge just needs to spread, whether we are profiting from it or our competitors, so to speak. No, we are all in the same boat here. We need to just make sure there's enough food to start with.
Yeah. What I wanted to express is good practices. That's the concept I wanted to grab.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
I think that's part of our business now, to spread this knowledge, including recipes and production secrets and so on.
So I'm just wondering,
Julia. Okay. Cool.
yeah. Well, I think it's just really interesting when you're in a sort of global crisis where there may not be resources easily coming from any other country, and there's more people to feed than there was after the World Wars. So although we have that history, this is also uncharted territory. But I think the sense of holding on to our values and our integrity and sharing best practice is critical, that we hold that in the right relationship in our decision making in these times.
We're all navigating these waves. The more information we can have about how to build, how to have this sustainability with the resources we now have, that will be the best way to potentially surpass this crisis.
Yeah,
I mean, they're diversifying agriculture, strengthening local food networks, and of course invest on renewable energy, move everything, move all the engine.
Yeah. So I'm wondering whether we pause here, have we got enough to, just as it's a small group, to pause the 2035 conversation and then bring us back and let that go of the year and just come back into December 2023 and just see, looking from having had that small conversation and just some sense of what we set up to explore, knowing that there's no crystal ball, but maybe some of this has some relevance. What are the sorts of things that we're realizing about our food company today and the diversified products and services that it offers, and any other reflections on what we know of our company right now? So if we take a moment just to think of one or two things that actually we really need to focus on now in order to be more ready for what's coming. Would anyone like to go first?
I see a whole list of things that we need to prepare. So if this scenario gets any real in the 2030s, we are right now utterly not prepared. That is what I take from our conversation before. We don't have any farm yet in which we have invested, and we were just assuming we had a few. It's high time we begin investing into the source of our supply chain and not rely on our industrial suppliers alone, because when there is a big disruption, we will just end up with nothing. That is the first thing I see. We need to have it from the farm to our factory. Needs to be all under our control. We need to have direct investment into not just any farming, but farming that will be resilient. That becomes a strategic move, that we need to put our money where our need is for the future. It's an immediate insight I take from our exchange.
Find sustainable food production methods. That's basically I think it is a root, and from that then plan and have like a very careful consideration in your supply chain. I mean, I'm talking about take care of quality, but also consider more sustainable regenerative practices, more unconventional agricultural what's the name, practices, yes. So we can of course be prepared and with this uncertainty, but more or less for sure a scenario if the climate changes moving forward. So I think those things are key, and knowledge, spread knowledge. That's also
I really see.
Sorry, Julia.
we need to map out and keep monitoring and calibrate the mix of hyper-local, local, regional, national, and global in our supply chain. And we'll need to be able to be dialing that up and down over the next 5 years. And this pattern of going into the supply chain, we're seeing across many different sectors. So the food sector, we're looking at the food producers and how do we, and we're not just trying to buy them, but how do we invest in them so that we have a supply chain, and so that relationship shifts its dynamic and becomes. I know it's always been important, but the power dynamic has always been with the food company and the retailer, and actually the power is starting to shift a bit, because yes, we're reliant, but the food retail and distributing companies were so demanding of this perfect high quality food. Now these people, I think, will have more power, and there's potential to be in more power with collaborations around that to explore what does that really look like, and how can they, if they're leaning into nature more, which is what regenerative practices invite and encourage and create, how does that then, how can we allow that to mutually influence us so that our system works with nature and becomes more agile and more responsive? So we're not looking for the perfect pint of milk all through the year when the grass changes and you get great milk in the first 6 months of the year, but not so great in the last 6 months. You know, how can we actually create a food system that responds to that has that depth of knowledge and complexity in it? Like, this is really a much deeper questioning of how to work when we're embedded in nature, and how does our distribution, retail, and financial system start to deal with that level of complexity?
I think in next year we can do some experiments in this direction, and I see our marketing department will tell a beautiful story where consumers will get used to see more variety in the industrial food than they have been used to. So this is a way to make also the consumers ready for this scenario. So I don't think we can go out with this scenario. People will just be shocked and will not believe us.
I wasn't suggesting that. This is something this is like a 10-year plan of, you know, that we would do well to actually take some inroads towards, but also to educate the consumer that there won't be the same availability 24/7, 365. You know, it has to start to be seasonal, be you know, cyclical, local, etc.
What we do is we make food durable. So that's still our main value that we provide, that there is a continuous quality throughout the year, because we are making the dry food, we're making the pre-processed food. The cyclical changes will be more on our wet and deep frozen parts and so on, when they come fresh to the supermarkets. So the fresh part is the more cyclical one, but actually our brand has been building on powder to start with. So that we have a solidity there. That is what people can really store, and they have something in their basement when hard times come. And that is definitely something we should have as a contingency to roll out such plans the moment the first Nino hits. So what I see, one of the most important things is to set up contingency planning for scenarios like this as a practice in our company. And secondly, to do some experimental scale things next year to see how we can really grow a complete supply chain in our most important markets, so that we are resilient for whatever comes. So we have like a local chain that is less dependent on political conflict and migration and hunger wars and all that, what is implicit in the scenario.
Right.
And find ways to nurture and be regenerative. Because we didn't have time to touch this the workforce topic, but that's something that it is of course it is key in the overall strategy we're planning for next year.
Yeah, well, as we are
And I
now
really
back
like
in
Julia's
now,
vision, local, and
yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing is that it really changes what HR is. You know, it's not about remuneration incentives, which are so many traditional companies still just pull these levers. Like and it may not be very altruistic in some organizations, but the whole, really understanding the well-being of their people, the nutrient supplies. I mean, you know, that might feel very far away, but that is a possibility. And how can that be held with wisdom and care and not manipulation? And you know, so yeah, these are big questions that I think we need to keep addressing.
And we need to make sure we have all of our leadership levels continuously ethically checked.
Yes.
Because the temptation to go to bribery as part of our business will be very big in these times of big scarcity. That's not where we want to go. Although in many countries this is kind of part of normal businesses and we have already our conflict zones there.
Yeah. So if we were to, is there anything else that feels important around the gaps or what we would really think, wow, we've not paying attention to this and this is really significant? I think for me, one, just as I was asking that question, I was thinking like the relationship with the government would probably have been not quite as strong as I now feel it needs to be. And how do we create that with governments that tend to not be really meeting our needs at the moment? And how do we do that as a sector? Because it's going to be hard for us to sustain a change on our own in the sector. It would take up so much work and energy, and what might be the cross-sector conversation that we need to start seeding now, actually, so that the sector becomes stronger in its awareness and asks and clearer on what it's asking for from the government, and has the roots and the relationships established over the next few years so that there's an agility when it's needed, and crisis mode, like you said, can not only be set up for within our company, but within across the sector and with the government. That needs to be in place. And the army, to be honest. Yeah.
And this country by country.
Yes.
So I suggest we do a few test runs in 24 in 3 countries for what is contingency planning, and in 3 other countries for what is agricultural farming as something that we get acquainted with. And so that actually Angela, I would suggest from our board, is supervising this with a select group of promising leaders who might be succeeding us in our roles, Alexandra, in 10 years or so. But to build up that capacity that people know the farming when they're talking food. That is kind of something we are all amateurs in farming. We don't know really how crops grow that we are processing. So that needs to change.
And there must be risk, people already in these conversations about risk that are able to help shape our thinking more, that exist either speaking to government or within agriculture already. So how do we engage with what's there well and get a bit more familiar with that? Okay. Yes.
Yes to everything. Yes.
Yes. So I think let's I feel like we've probably come to a cycle point. Does that feel right? Where we just pause for there? And then we can completely shake off being on this board.
Alexandra, please close the meeting so then we can shake off.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I highly appreciate your thoughts on this board meeting. I consider that having this kind of exercise can lead us to not only as to reach success somehow in our goals that we have planned for next year, but also to consider to place us in a scenario that it is possible to happen, and we can find. I know we can find them because we already discussed some ideas on how to become more resilient and help others in the process, not only us, but also involve others, local farming, government, people from the ground. I mean, I'm talking about the community organizations and so on, so that we can call them and think about how we can better engage and overcome these issues. That's what I think to close this board meeting.
Yeah, thank you.
Super.
Thank you for sharing it so well.
Yes.
Passing it to Robert. Go ahead, Robert.
No,
well, I think we can
is
put,
done. We can put our names back.
Yes, we can become ourselves.
Of course. Yeah, thanks. It was hard to be Alexander for a moment. I was like, oh my gosh, so much pressure.
It's like that. So
yeah.
Yes.
Jackie, is there now?
Well, it'd be just lovely to take a few moments
on our experience.
Yeah, exactly, and just hear like from each of us, like what was that like? What did we notice? Was there anything that surprised us? Yeah, so maybe yeah, it'd be good to hear from you, Yanesi.
Yes, well, it was a hard scenario in terms of, I mean, I really feel like not only the pressure, but responding to the company. I'm talking about the pressure of okay, people is lying. This a scenario, is scarcity. That there's so many things that are happening right now, and how to face it. Not personally, but for a company, and trying to avoid that personal, touch there, because well, we're talking about business, but we're also talking about lives, local farming, and so all those things were a little bit like all those complex things were in my brain during the exercise, and at the same time, there was a debating inside, like what else can I provide to fix the issue, to find an answer, to be here another year in the board. I don't know. It was a little bit it was a challenge for me. I agree with Ivy. She mentioned like her takeaway was to read more about sustainable agriculture and food production. Or
I think Reiner's internet must have dropped off, but hopefully he'll come back.
Yes.
Yeah, so I mean, it felt like there's quite a lot to hold there, being Alexandra, being chair of the meeting, knowing about food systems, learning about it. So there's a lot of going on just in the conditions that we created. But
I do believe that having enough information, share it, finding ways of interconnect us with other areas. I mean, not only food. I'm talking about agriculture. I'm talking about so many topics that are there that sometimes we are like, and include myself, like I don't know, we take for granted,
Yeah.
That's the feeling I had, like, okay, I take it for granted this, and this is important. Why I'm not more involved or somehow on this, or how could I spread the word on this? So probably we can avoid this scenario, or we can't, but we can be more prepared to face it. So many thoughts all at the same time. That's why I was a little bit like also distracted. I was like, oh, but imagine this. I was like, oh, this is too much to handle.
Yeah. I mean, that's great feedback, thank you, because part of what we want to do is create a bit of dissonance and like that sense of, oh my gosh. And when you said, you know, it's like work, the organization and life, that's exactly the shift that we want to invite, because a lot of organizations and companies don't hold their role within life in their day-to-day thinking, and these crises will most likely invite more of that. Was there anything that surprised you about the experience?
It was hard at the beginning, then it turned a little bit easier to navigate the storytelling. But surprise, no, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. It's of course I'm surprised about the whole scenario, because it's very specific. Is I like that. It was a little bit difficult to grasp everything, but it was okay. But surprise, yeah, I'm surprised about that scenario. I don't want to leave that scenario, of course.
No, totally.
But yeah, basically that. I really like the synergy we have.
Thank you. Yes, that's great. And Reiner, anything from you in your reflections? Welcome back. Glad you got back on.
Yeah, I hope the connection stays. I noticed that as I was the CEO in the board, I had a hard time hearing all your critical remarks on what we all should be doing. And I felt like, wait a second, we're doing this already. So the role was really coming to me.
That's so funny.
And as a CEO on the board, you might be a board member, but actually you're always speaking with your bosses. So if they're getting too critical about what you have been doing so far, you're kind of half out normally. So that was also, I was aware of that. So I needed to kind of defend a bit what the company was already doing and so on. So that came very natural. So the roles are implicit in these dynamics. They play. And I think family business are better equipped to have this long-term thinking than companies that are listed on the stock market with the majority of their shares. Because what we have to do here, we cannot tell everyone immediately.
Although some family businesses are, both. Yes. So it's, but anyway, Karen.
Yeah, so it is good to be able to have certain plans and not needing to talk about it to everyone all the time. Be under constant scrutiny by the press and investors and so on, and needing to defend why is your stock price going down and stuff like that. So that gives a certain relaxation to the situation we had. So just to say, we could really experience how bad the stock markets are as a decision maker, because they don't decide. They're just creating pressure on people that actually have to decide. So that scenario, the family was healthy, actually, as a background. But then it is amazing. The moment you see such a big crisis scenario, then we just see that kind of most of the things we hold for granted, they just disappear. And we need to navigate in a complete uncertain territory and invent things that are not there and stuff like that. So that is, I think, really healthy for many boards to go through scenarios like this and readjust their business directions and find mandates for important people of the company to actually negotiate lobbying strategies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So in that sense, that's the medicine that we took ourselves today.
It works. I feel similarly, like the basis, the foundational assumptions are not present in this 2035 scenario that we created, and that initially it's very overwhelming and there's nothing to quite orient to, and then you start to find a little bit of ground, and then the conversation can move. So yeah, that's a sort of predicted journey through this, and it was nice to see that even in this simulation we were finding it a bit easier as we got into it a bit further. I think the slight resistance you were speaking to, Rainer, I could feel, and I felt like you weren't being radical enough. But as the CEO, that's not your role. Your role is to sustain this stability. And so part of our proposal is to do it with the boards and the successors, just to allow a little more room, because and we'll see how that plays out. I think that if we were doing this across different sectors, the need to have a sector-specific future scenario is really critical. And as at least one of the scenarios, maybe we have a few. So like this food one is so essential and so it will cover all sectors. So that's something I'm learning, is I think, okay, this food one probably should be included, but if we do insurance, we need something for the insurance or private equity and as well, and that would be really interesting. Yeah, there weren't so many surprises, but it does drive home things. And that was our hope. And even though we were working on B Lab's idea to take this a little further in the design, it's left me going, oh, okay, I've learned stuff today, and that feels good. So I feel really buoyed up that this is a good path to go, which will help me in trying to encourage people to try it. Fab. So I also want to say a big thank you to you, Eunice, because it's quite intense to come into a very small group like this and just be thrown in the deep end. And you did that graciously and courageously. So a big thank you for joining in as you did. It was really brilliant and generous.
Thank you so much for inviting me, for having me here, for be patient enough so I can, start. Sometimes it is hard for me to, what's the word, like to improvise. That's the word. Yeah, that's something. It is hard for me, but at the same time, see, it is a challenge for me. I always try to pursue the idea of or pushing me to be in those scenarios, so I can improve a bit more and provide my ideas quicker, because well, English is my second language.
Well,
probably could be faster than in Spanish. I'm not sure, but this is interesting, and I really enjoy it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I don't think you were taking a long time, and I was aware. I said, gosh, you're doing all this in another language, so that's brilliant as well. So thank you for that.
Thanks. Well,
right.
I'm gonna end up the recording, but I will do it by saying thank you so much again. Thank you for having this session and during the Unconference. I hope we can have another one on January, or I don't know.
Sometime.
Sometime soon.
Brilliant. Thank you, Eunice. Bye-bye.
Thank you.